And right now, our special guest has entered. I like to say this man is a legend to me because I first saw you as a kid.
Wow.
Like I was a young person. Like, wow, look at this man on TV. Look at this group of people on TV. And now, author. He's a speaker, activist. Yes. He's got a new book called My Mother, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and the Last Stand of the Angry White Man. Welcome to the show, Kevin Powell, y'all.
Yo, it's good to be here. Thank y'all so much for having me. I'm awake now. I'm wide awake. Yes.
Kevin Powell is in the building. He's ready to talk, man. We got to have a discussion, too. Sidebar, I do like your Rutgers University.
Thank you.
Not Jersey, was that hoodie? Did you go to Rutgers?
I went to Rutgers way back in the day.
Okay, I know you're a Jersey guy.
Yeah,
you're a Jersey guy.
Where are you from? Where y'all from?
We're from here. We're from DMV.
Yeah, my pops from Jersey, though. My pops from Newark, actually.
From the bricks.
Yeah.
Your pops ain't no joke if he from Newark.
Nah, he's not, for sure.
That's what's up.
Yeah, man. So, we got to shout out to colleges because my organization is called College is Cool. So it's all about,
I love that.
Representing. And I love when people come and represent their schools, represent their universities. So shout out to Rutgers. Kevin Powell, I want to get right into it because, we were playing the Cardi and you asked us, have we been talking about Cardi and Nicki? And yet, of course, that has been the topic of discussion, especially within What's Poppin'. But it also kind of goes with the theme of your book, right? Which I thought the title is what stands out to me immediately, right? This is your 13th book?
My 13th book.
13th book.
So I did it the year 1992. I did MTV's The Real World, the TV show you're talking about, but it's also the year that Quincy Jones started Vibe magazine, so I ended up writing for Vibe. I've been writing since I was a kid, and that was a great opportunity, and as a lot of folks know, I did a number of cover stories on Tupac Shakur. I was actually there in Vegas when he died, and during that time I started writing my books, and I never thought I'd get to 13 books, but here we are, you know what I'm saying? So
that's awesome.
Amazing.
How hard is it? I feel like, how hard is it to keep writing books, though?
It's hard.
Do you get to a place? Because I assume you probably, does a book deal work like a record deal where it's like they say, okay, we're going to sign you to 5-book deal right now.
And what you got next?
Yeah, is that how it works?
It's funny you asked that question. This is a 3-book deal, and the next book is actually a biography of Tupac, and I've had this deal for 10 years, and I actually think the artists get paid better than we do at the publisher. And that's saying a lot, yo. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but in the book, My Mother, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and the Last Stand of the Angry Man, one thing I like when you kind of break it down into several essays, is that right?
Yeah.
And so in the part where you're discussing your mother and how she raised you and grew you, you have a quote that says, when you're living in a male-dominated world and dealing with male-dominated spaces, this is the result. Pure amnesty towards a woman for who we think she is, as opposed to regarding her as a whole human being.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to speak to that because I think that conversation in this part of your book also relates to the way we're seeing Cardi B, Nicki Minaj being out there, even Serena Williams. When we talk about Serena and Naomi Osaka, speak to that a little bit about how women are viewed and just what you saw via your relationship with your mother and just what you're seeing today as far as how women are being portrayed right now in media.
I mean, just like we talk about racism, and it's an excellent question you asked, and I appreciate it. We were taught sexism from an early age. I always tell people, not only did I not learn black history growing up, or Latino history, or Asian history, Native American history, I learned nothing about women K through 12 either. And I was an A student growing up. I mean, you learn about Betsy Ross, maybe Helen Keller, maybe Rosa Parks, unless you have a parent or parents or a school that teaches you that women are the equals of men. You grew up as a man thinking that women are inferior, are nothing more than sex objects or caretakers, and these stereotypes, just like we learn these stereotypes about people of color. And so I was definitely one of those folks. And then I was deeply involved. I've been a hip hop head since 1978, 79, since I was a shorty. Graffiti writer, b-boy, the whole 9 yards, right up to my years with Vibe magazine. And so when you talk about it, my mom's had to deal with stuff. When I heard about the Harvey Weinstein thing and him showing up in hotel rooms, in his robe, my mother told me that story of her when she was working as the help, basically, as a young woman back in the day, and the husband came out in a robe and revealed his private parts to her. And so this is the kind of stuff that a lot of women, as you know, have to deal with. And so I think that we got to have an honest conversation. And my sister, Tarana Burke, who created hashtag Me Too 12 years ago, we need to be clear, was a black woman who created the term Me Too a long time ago, and she's finally getting credit for it. You know what I mean? This is something that black women have had to deal with for a long time. All women, but definitely black women. And I think that for me, I wanted to show America through the lens of my mother. I actually dreamed the title, and when I dreamed it, I was like, damn, The Last Stand of the Angry White Man. It's not just about Donald Trump. It's about all these white men out here who feel emboldened to say all kinds of crazy stuff about black people, about immigrants, about queer people, any group that's been marginalized in this country. You know what I'm saying? And we're saying, you know what? We're not taking this anymore. We're pushing back, and this is unacceptable. This country belongs to everybody. We all built this country together. It's not just a country of immigrants, quote unquote, but also black folks who built it, who were enslaved in this country. This country belonged to Native Americans. You know what I mean? And so, you know, through the lens of my mother's been sick for the last couple of years, and I'm my only child. Been taking care of her, you know what I'm saying, and I've learned new things about my mom's, and I've been thinking about her life and just what it means to be a black woman in society. So that's why I tied it into Obama and Trump. Like, you can't talk about, you know, the leadership without talking about everyday regular people. Like when you said your father's from Newark, I was like, I understood immediately, you know, what kind of man he is, because you know, it shapes you in a certain kind of way coming from our communities, you know what I mean? Be it PG County or Southeast DC, it means something no matter where we're from, because it's our culture, you know what I'm saying?
And I love that the book starts with your mother, you know, even though, again, you got Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and The Last Stand of the Angry White Man, but you started it with your mother.
She's the first teacher, the first leader I ever met. I always said that. My mom has an 8th grade education, but there's no way I would have 13 books. It was my mother who took me to the library when I was 8 years old. She doesn't even read books, but something in her said, you know what, let me drop this boy in the library. And so when I meet kids today, I know you work around college, getting kids to go to college, which I respect so much. A lot of young people say, I don't like to read. Well, I say, read what you love. The first books I read were sports books. I love sports. That's what got me open to reading other kinds of books. And so just read what you love. Develop that love of reading, then it'll take you other places.
Real quick, before we go to commercial, real quick, because we got more to talk about with Kevin Powell. If you were still writing like a column for Vibe magazine right now, with all that you're seeing, how would you write the story, or what perspective would you give regarding what you've seen with like Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, and you know, again, the greater implications of it, because that's what we were talking about. Everybody, in my opinion, everybody wins here. The labels financially, the labels, Cardi and Nicki, but the greater impact of the images that we see, the greater impact is where we lose, which is to, you know, is directed towards the people, what they see, the young people, especially young women that are watching Cardi, watching Nicki. And you know, for some of us can look at it and see entertainment value, but others of us are really invested in that. You know, we're really invested in Cardi's feelings and Nicki's feelings, and you know, you begin to absorb some of that energy too. So, you know, how would you write that?
As y'all know, I lived through Tupac and Biggie. I was there at Vibe when the whole East Coast, West Coast thing exploded, and it was ugly. It got to a point where some of us did not want to go to the West Coast. Some folks didn't want to come to the East Coast because it took on a life of its own. And having lived through that, I would say, you know what, Nicki and Cardi, you know, hip hop has been such a male-dominated culture. It's rare that you see two women that are platinum artists like this. You know what I mean? You can count a few of Salt and Pepper, you know, Lauryn Hill 20 years ago, Miseducation and stuff like that. Figure out a way to sit down and squash this, you know what I mean? Because we need to see self-love in our communities. We need to see love for each other and support for each other. And I understand Cardi because I come from the hood, and I've been that dude that used to wild out on people all the time. You know what I mean? And at some point, you got to evolve. I feel like Cardi could be really an incredible figure. You know what I mean? I was watching her on Love and Hip Hop after the whole thing happened with her. Because I saw the video, I said, okay, she threw a shoe. She got a big old knot on her head. Let me go back and watch Love and Hip Hop. I forgot she threw a shoe on Love and Hip Hop. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I just hope that the people around her will help her to evolve. You know what I mean? Because this is not, you want to be around 20 years from now. You want to be around 30 years from now, because we know artists come and go. Y'all have people in here like they're big 1 minute, then they're gone.
Very true.
And one of the things I realized from my own experience with MTV and Vibe and dealing with Tupac, no one gives you a blueprint. When you become famous, all of a sudden you're just famous. And you have a lot of yes people around you. You got to make sure you have the right people around you. And to the folks paying attention to it, to the young sisters out there, love Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, but also learn who Nikki Giovanni is, and Audre Lorde, and Sonia Sanchez. You know what I mean? And Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, Zora Hurst, learn about these. Michelle Obama's book is coming out in a couple months.
Come on now.
You know what I mean? Make sure we know about all kinds of powerful women of color. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. We got Kevin Powell is here. My mother, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and The Last Stand of the Angry White Man. This book right here looks like it's going to ruffle some feathers, man. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready, but let me make it very clear. I love all people. As an activist, that's my work, to bring people together. But I dream that title, and you know what I'm saying is like, enough of the racism, enough of the hate, the division, the fear out here in this country. You know, no to racism, no to sexism, no to homophobia, classism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, ableism against disabled people. Let's bring people together, you know what I mean? And that's what I talk about in the book. It's really a book about hope and love, you know. But sometimes you gotta put something out there that's going to people like, oh, you know what I mean?
Get your attention.
Yeah, but it's not. It's about love. It's not about hate at all. You know,
which is interesting. It seemed like, you know, you Barack Obama is a part of this book, and you talk about the fact that it seemed like in the beginning. Because it's been about 10 years,
it's
right?
10 years this year. Yeah.
10 years this year. Well, I remember when he came to Comcast Center on the campus of University of Maryland, and the line, this was when he was campaigning, the line, we stood in a line, right? It was cold, and we stood in that line because we had to hear this man speak.
That's right.
And I just remember seeing all colors, all cultures, all people were represented in that room, and he spoke to all of the people.
That's right.
And that idea of change, or that idea that it was that hope at the time, because at that time people were upset and fed up.
That's right.
And it almost seems like there's like a cycle I'm starting to see, where it's like people got to get into a place where they get upset and fed up, and then it forces them essentially to move, to go to the polls.
Well, I'm so clear, and I said in the book that what we see now with the current presidency and all this stuff in the country is a reaction of backlash to Michelle and Barack. That's very clear to me, because there are forces out there that hated the fact that the first black president got into the White House and brought all these people together, and they've gone back to appealing to like the ugliest parts of the society, the racism and us against them kind of mentality. And it can't, that no one wins when we're fighting each other. You know what I'm saying? So.
And the part about Donald Trump, you talk about the fact that you have traveled the world, like
blessed,
and you know that for all the headlines you see about Donald Trump, President Trump, it's very possible that he can get reelected, even with all that we've seen. So, just in your travels, what have you seen from? Because it's core. We talk about this with Jeff Bennett. He's our White House correspondent, which is that Trump supporters are Trump supporters.
That's right.
They are to the core. They believe in what he's saying. So, a lot of times we keep thinking, we see this headline, that's the end of it for him.
But it's more of us than Trump supporters. But the problem is we don't vote on a consistent basis. I'm talking about millennials, Gen X. The only generation that votes on a consistent basis is my mother's generation, civil rights generation. They old school, they vote. My mother has memories. Yeah, they know what I'm saying. And so younger people, the way I've been here posting on Instagram and Twitter, like we got to take voting as seriously as posting on social media. You know what I mean? And that's what it is for us. And like we got to understand, like if you don't vote, you're basically saying not only certain people can get into the White House, but people can tell you what's going to go on in PG County, what's going to go on in DC with resources in your community. So we got to get involved, and we can't say, well, they're whack. Well, then you should run for office. What I love about 2018, we see mad younger people, Ben Jealous in Maryland, Stacey Abrams in Georgia, Andrew Gillum in Florida. These are all hip hop era people now running for office. My boy Ras Baraka in New York. You got Kamala Harris and Cory Booker in the United States Senate. These are all people who grew up with this culture that Radio 1 plays. And I'm saying, you know what? Now we need to translate that into voting. Tupac said to me years ago, imagine if all the cats that play my music and Snoop's music, all the people who play Cardi B's music and Nicki Minaj's music and Lil Wayne about to come back, you know what I'm saying? Imagine if we all became regular voters too, you know what I'm saying?
And that's what we need, like incorporating that into the culture, right? Incorporating that into hip hop culture, those messages of activism and voting. And I'm glad you mentioned our company Radio 1, because we are black owned, black women owned.
That's why I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, there's something to be said about ownership as well in our media and in our creativity, like having that ownership. Can you speak a little bit on ownership, essentially?
I have worked for myself for the past 22 years, and I'll tell you straight up, when I was so happy to be a Vibe magazine back in the day, but I never thought, Kev, you could start your own hip hop magazine. I never thought about it until after the fact, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with, like, I'd have gigs where I work at places, but I also say to people, have something that's your own, that you own too. I think in our lifetimes, if you don't own a piece of property or a business, and I'm not talking about a non-profit, which I also have, I'm talking about a for-profit, so you can make a living.
Come on now.
You know what I'm saying?
Pass it on.
And learn the business that you're interested in. If you don't love hot dogs, why would you sell hot dogs? You know what I'm saying? And I meet a lot of heads who want to get into music and sports, as we were talking about off the air. You should learn the history of music. You should learn the history of sports, and know that not everybody has to be a rapper. Not everybody has to be like the athlete, but the sports agent, the sports manager, you know what I'm saying? The sports consultant. You can, so many different things that you could do. When I think about hip hop, I mean, part of the reason why I've not had a job in 22 years is because hip hop is a basic definition we have, making something out of nothing and winning on your own terms. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. And so when I look at heads that I've come up with, man, like, I'm part of the reason why I'm in DC. The Hispanic Heritage Awards just happened the other day. Crazy Legs, one of our legendary dancers, just got the award. This brother has been to 100 countries. He has a lifetime partnership with Red Bull. He's had Red Bull support his people in Puerto Rico. I was at his house. He's getting calls from all over the world. This brother comes from the hood in the Bronx where hip hop started, but hip hop has allowed him to be self-empowered. and
Nice.
own his own thing. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what it's about. Again, the book, Kevin Powell, My Mother, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and the Last Stand of the Angry White Man.
Yes.
When does this come out? And I know you have
It's
an event
out.
tonight. It's out now.
Yeah, it's out now.
Okay.
And if I can, people hit me up at kevin@kevinpowell.net. That's my email, kevin@kevinpowell.net. And then my Instagram and Facebook are Kevin Powell in Brooklyn. Kevin Powell in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, now real quick, you said your mother was your first teacher.
Yeah.
Can you name something that she taught you that you just recently or start like you just got recently?
Whew. My mom's just mad cheap with money.
Hey. One
And so-
time for the frugal folks.
Yo,
Yes.
frugal word.
Yo,
One time for the frugal folks.
let's
Don't call
build-
us cheap.
Let's build that vocabulary. Frugal.
Frugal.
Word. You know what I mean? But I've realized all these years later, mom's is right. Hold on to your cake, your paper. You know what I'm saying? And like, you know, as a result, finally, I'm very non-materialistic. I mean, you know, when you get money, I mean, MTV and Vibe happened for me when I was in my 20s. I was buying stuff for all kinds of people.
You was around, you was trying to keep up.
I was trying to keep up. You
I've
know
been
what?
there.
I'm like, yo, only thing I really want now is a big flat screen for my movies and my sports. You know what I mean?
And you out the way.
And I'm good. You know what I mean? That's all I need. And my wife, I got married a year ago. She's mad frugal. She's mad frugal,
You
y'all.
need it. I need a little balance.
Word.
You need
You
a
know
little
what I'm
balance. Kevin Powell, man, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thank you for your words. It's incredible, and I'm looking forward to reading this book because I want to see what you have to say.
Thank you so much.
And I love how it's kind of like essay formatted. See, a lot of people don't. When it comes to reading, too, sometimes people don't like just having to read something straight through.
Yeah.
But it seems like you kind of are making a lot of transitions.
I
within the
am,
book. So
yeah.
you're not talking about just one specific thing. The entire.
Because I know people, you know, and you can read it in parts. I get how we read nowadays. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
the climate of like folks, how fast they move on and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Social
Exactly.
media and stuff.
And if I can, I would like to put in a request now when the Tupac biography comes out. I want to come back here because that's gonna be
I was
that's
about to ask.
gonna be a huge deal when that comes out. So I'm excited about it. You know what I mean?
All right, Kevin Powell. He
Thank
said
you.
he's coming back. He is now a part of the Angie Ange morning show.
Thank
Yes.
you.
You the man. Thank you, Kevin Powell.